I suppose let my son know that anything's possible if you put your mind to it. And that was kind of the initial intention, but it turned into something, the journey of it turned into something really special. The logistics of this was huge, and so it was from October through to May. When I left Birdsville, I think I cried probably for the first day of the reality of, oh my God, here I am. And I was really scared. And I had reason to be, because there was so much unknown, and there was only so much you can prepare for, and the rest was just going to be experienced. You know, one of the significant elements of the trip was my relationship with Banjo. He was a 4.8 fat tower bike. I needed to learn a whole bunch of mechanics. I needed to take care of him so that he could take care of what I wanted to achieve. And the first time he broke, I was like, oh God, and it was like the second day. But the two blokes that ended up stopping and saving my backside, and I learnt so much from them. Nigel and Peter, they were brother-in-laws travelling, and they stopped, unconditionally rescued me on the side of the road, and then got on with their day. And we had this passing. The last day coming out of the Unadata track was really horrible conditions, and they sort of, if I wasn't doing the challenge, I would have gone home and said, no, I'm done. And that was only, 15 minutes into a full day's ride. I was done. And how do you continue from that space? And that was my challenge. 42k short of Marla, one family stopped who were just starting the Unadata track from the opposite direction. And they stopped and they called out. By this stage, I was, trying to figure out how I was going to get there. And they called out and said, oh, do you need a hand? And I went, ugh, and I burst into tears. And they said, oh my God, we'll pull over. And they said, you okay? And I went, no. And they said, what do you need? And I said, I just need to tell someone that this is shit. And they said, oh, and do you need chocolate? And I said, yes, and I need chocolate. And we stopped and we just talked for 5 minutes, and that's all I needed, that someone cared, that sense of connection. And I didn't even eat the chocolate. It just sat in my bag, and it was just this sense of knowing that we're all connected. The last few days, it was Gibberstone Desert, it's not the middle of nowhere. I had learnt that there is no such thing. It's always something to someone or something, even though we look around and our eyes don't see much in the first, in the first looking. And so I knew it wasn't in the middle of nowhere. There was nothing to entertain me, and I wanted entertainment, and it was just blue skies, a constant uphill, Gibberstones, and I was over it. I was so headwind, and I was so freaking over it. For me, mentally, it was the hardest, because it was then sitting with that discomfort, and there is no relief. You just got to sit with it. But it was the most life-changing moment for me, is to have, I couldn't walk away from it. I had to move through it. Literally on the home stretch to Birdsville, and there was a forecast of the weather changing, after the next 24 hours. So, and it was going to be headwind and really cold. I sort of went right, and I just got into this crazy zone of focus, and I was just cycling through to Birdsville, and I got into the early evening, and a dust storm hit, and immediately it stops you in, you can't ride in a dust storm, and I had no control over it, and it was, I just knew then that my trip was over. The next morning I'm up and I'm in the back of a road train getting a lift into Birdsville, because the weather had just, had closed in overnight. And that's how I sort of finished my cycle into Birdsville. But for me and Banjo, thumbs up. Thumbs up. Yay, the 10 Desert Challenge. That was a really important part of the trip, is fundraising. So that it was always about something bigger than me and my ego. And I needed that. Because sometimes I didn't want to get up and get into the next day, and that was the get up and get into the next day. You've got people that you've committed to, and I needed that accountability. Bike is such an enabling bit of personal kit that it really opens up the excitement to go get on that journey, get on your bike, and you never know what you're going to see. And I love that. You never know what's around the corner. Banjo's gone back to his owner, and then I got back my my bike Ruby, Ruby's a mountain bike that I got my 40th, and I'm now 54. And so I think Ruby and I are now looking at our next challenge? Perhaps, like, fastest lap unsupported sounds pretty cool. So I think that's where we're headed next. Mischief, full of mischief, hey?